When Elias Mercer fired 3 shots into the winter sky, he wasn't celebrating. He was screaming at a life that had taken everything and given nothing back. What he didn't know was that miles away, a woman was collapsing in the snow, clutching a letter with his address. She'd come to marry a man who never asked for her, and when she arrived more dead than alive, he had a choice: send her back to certain death, or let a stranger shatter the walls he'd spent years building. Stay until the end to see how 2 broken people forge something unbreakable. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The gunshots echoed across the valley like thunder trapped between mountains. Elias Mercer stood on the ridge above his ranch, Winchester raised, and fired again. The crack split the silence, sent ravens scattering from the pines. He didn't lower the rifle, just stood there, breath clouding in the February cold, staring at nothing. 3 years he'd been alone up here. 3 years since the fever took his wife and infant son in the same week. 3 years of waking to empty rooms and eating meals that tasted like ash. He fired once more, then let the rifle drop to his side. The ranch spread below him. Barn, corrals, the 2-story house he'd built with timber he'd cut himself. Everything neat, everything functional, everything hollow. You gonna shoot the sky all day, or are you gonna come help with this fence? Elias turned. His younger brother Thomas was climbing the slope, moving with the easy confidence of someone who'd never lost anything that mattered. Fence can wait, Elias said. Not if we want the herd secure before the next storm. Thomas reached him, glanced at the rifle. What are you shooting at? Ghosts. Thomas's jaw tightened. You need to stop this. Stop what? This. Thomas gestured at the rifle, at Elias, at the whole scene. Living like you're already dead. It's been 3 years. I know how long it's been. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're so deep in your own grave you can't see daylight anymore. Elias's hand tightened on the Winchester. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you've given up. I know you work yourself half to death every day just so you're too tired to feel anything. I know. Enough. Elias's voice went flat, cold. Go fix your fence. Thomas held his ground for another moment, then shook his head. One day you're going to wake up and realize you wasted your whole life mourning instead of living. He turned and headed back down the slope. Elias watched him go, then looked out over the ranch again. The valley stretched empty in every direction, white with snow, silent except for the wind. Maybe Thomas was right. Maybe he was living in a grave. He just didn't know how to climb out. The freight wagon arrived 4 days later, mid-morning, pulling up to the ranch house with its wheels cutting deep ruts in the mud-slick road. Elias was in the barn, shoeing a mare, when he heard it. He straightened, hammer in hand, listening. They weren't expecting supplies, weren't expecting anything. He walked out into the cold sunlight. The wagon driver was climbing down. Old Frank Morrison from town, face weathered like drought-cracked leather. But it wasn't Frank that made Elias stop cold. It was the woman. She was slumped in the wagon bed, wrapped in blankets, unconscious. Dark hair spilled across her face. Young, maybe mid-20s, pale as death. What the hell is this? Elias said. Frank hurried around to the back of the wagon. Found her on the north road about 6 miles out. Collapsed. Near froze to death. So take her to Doc Stevens. Doc's in Capital City for the week. Won't be back till Thursday. Frank pulled the blanket back slightly. The woman's lips were blue, her breathing shallow. She ain't got till Thursday. Elias stared at her, at this stranger who'd somehow ended up dying on his property. She say anything? Tell you what happened? Was barely conscious when I found her. Kept saying a name. Mercer, I think. That's why I brought her here. Something cold settled in Elias's gut. Mercer. You know her? Never seen her before in my life. The barn door opened behind him. Thomas emerged, saw the wagon, saw the woman. His face went white. Oh no, Thomas said quietly. Elias turned to him. You know something about this? Thomas didn't answer, just stood there looking like he'd been punched. Thomas, Elias's voice dropped. What did you do? Before Thomas could answer, the woman stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, gray-green, unfocused. She looked at Elias, seemed to try to speak, then went limp again. Get her inside, Frank said. Now, before we lose her. Elias wanted to refuse. wanted to tell Frank to take her somewhere else, anywhere else. He didn't know this woman, didn't want to know her, didn't want anyone in his house, in his life. But even as he thought it, he was moving. He climbed into the wagon bed, slid his arms under her. She weighed almost nothing. He lifted her carefully, felt how cold she was even through the blankets. "Thomas," he said, "open the door." Thomas stood frozen. "Now." Thomas jolted into motion, running ahead to the house. Elias carried the woman across the yard, up the porch steps. Inside, the house was warm. He kept the stove going all winter. Thomas cleared the table. Elias laid her down as gently as he could. Her face was porcelain white, lips cracked and bleeding. Frostbite darkened her fingertips. She looked like she'd been walking for days. "Get blankets," Elias said, "and warm water. Not hot, warm." Thomas disappeared upstairs. Frank hovered in the doorway. "There was a bag," Frank said, "in the snow near where I found her. Had papers in it, letters. I put it under the wagon seat." "Bring it." Frank left. Elias peeled back the layers of frozen clothing, checking for injuries. Her hands and feet were in bad shape, but nothing looked broken. No blood, just exposure and exhaustion. Thomas returned with blankets. They wrapped her carefully, elevated her feet. Elias brought warm water, started thawing her hands one finger at a time. It was delicate work, painful work. If you warmed frostbitten skin too fast, you could cause permanent damage. The woman whimpered, a small sound of pain. "I know," Elias said quietly. "I know it hurts." Frank came back in carrying a worn leather satchel. He set it on the counter. "I'll head back to town. Let me know if she pulls through." "Appreciate it, Frank." Frank nodded and left. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the house. Elias worked in it, methodically warming the woman's extremities, checking her breathing. Thomas stood nearby, looking like he wanted to bolt. Finally, Elias couldn't hold it in anymore. "Who is she?" Thomas swallowed hard. "Her name's Lydia Hart." "That's not what I asked." Thomas stopped, started again. "She came here for me." Elias's hand stilled. "For you." "No, I mean," Thomas ran his hand through his hair. "I sent for her." "Sent for her?" "As a bride." The words hung in the air like smoke. Elias looked up slowly. "A bride. Not for me. For—" Thomas couldn't meet his eyes. "For you." Everything went very quiet. Elias could hear his own heartbeat loud in his ears. "What did you just say?" "You were dying up here, Eli, every day a little more. I thought if you had someone—" "You thought." Elias's voice was soft, dangerous. "You thought you'd send for a mail-order bride without telling me." "I was trying to help." "Help!" Elias stood and Thomas took a step back. "You sent a complete stranger to my house, told her she was coming here to marry me, and you call that help? You weren't going to do it yourself. You were just going to waste away up here, mourning forever, never moving on, never— That was my choice. It was killing you. It was mine." Elias's fist slammed into the table. The woman stirred, moaned softly. He forced himself to lower his voice. "My life, my grief, my choice. You had no right." Thomas's face flushed. "Someone had to do something. So you played matchmaker without asking either of us? Do you have any idea what you've done? This woman came here thinking she was starting a new life, thinking she was meeting a man who wanted her, and instead she finds, what, a ghost? A man who can't even stand the sight of her because she reminds him of everything he lost? That's not— And what happens when she wakes up? When she realizes this was all a lie? That the man she came to marry didn't even know she existed?" Thomas had no answer. Elias looked down at Lydia Hart. At this stranger his brother had dragged into his life. She looked so fragile lying there, so young. What had she been running from that she'd travel alone through winter mountains to marry a man she'd never met? "How'd you even find her?" he asked. "Ad in the Eastern papers, bride service. They vet the women, make sure they're respectable. I wrote to her, told her about the ranch, about you. What'd you tell her? That I was looking for a wife? I told her you were a good man, hardworking, honest, that you'd treat her well. And the part where I didn't want a wife? You leave that out? I thought," Thomas's voice cracked, "I thought if she came, if you met her, maybe you'd see it was possible to live again, to be happy. Happy. Elias laughed, a bitter sound. You don't get it, do you? I had happy. I had everything, and it was taken from me in 6 days. 6 days, Thomas. That's how long it took for fever to kill my wife and son. 6 days from the first cough to 2 graves on the hill. You think I'm going to risk that again? You think I'm going to let myself care about someone just so I can watch them die? Not everyone dies. Everyone dies. It's just a matter of when. So what, you're just going to live alone forever? Build your fences and shoe your horses and shoot at the sky until you're too old to hold a rifle? Elias didn't answer, because the truth was, yes, that was exactly what he'd planned. Thomas shook his head. She's here now. What are you going to do? Send her back when she wakes up? If she wakes up? I don't know. She's got nowhere to go. Look at her. She spent everything getting here. The letters said her family's gone. She's got no money, no prospects. She came here because this was her only option. Then she made a bad choice. Maybe, or maybe she's braver than both of us. Elias wanted to argue, but looking at Lydia Hart, at the woman who'd nearly died trying to reach a new life, he couldn't quite manage it. Get the bag, he said. Let's see what papers she brought. Thomas retrieved the satchel. Inside were letters, dozens of them, carefully folded and tied with string. Elias recognized his own address on the envelopes, but not the handwriting. Thomas's handwriting. There was also a document from the bride service listing Lydia's details. Age, 24. Previous occupation, teacher. Family, deceased. Reason for emigration, seeking new opportunities. The words were clinical, sanitized. They told him nothing about who she really was. Underneath the papers was a tintype photograph. Elias picked it up. It showed a young woman in a dark dress, seated, looking directly at the camera. Her expression was serious, almost stern, but there was something in her eyes, determination maybe, or defiance. He compared the photo to the unconscious woman on his table. Same face, but softer in person. Younger, more vulnerable. What are you going to do? Thomas asked again. Elias set the photo down. Keep her alive. That's all I can promise right now. She woke screaming. It was past midnight. Elias was dozing in a chair near the stove when her cry split the silence. He was on his feet instantly, moving to the table where she thrashed against the blankets. Easy, he said. Easy. You're safe. Her eyes were wild, unfocused. She fought the blankets like they were attacking her. Lydia. He used her name, hoped it would anchor her. Lydia, you're safe. You're at the Mercer Ranch. You collapsed on the road. You're safe now. She stopped struggling, looked at him. In the lamplight, her eyes were huge, terrified. Where? Her voice was a rasp. Where am I? The Mercer Ranch. I'm Elias Mercer. Something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe. Or hope. Or fear. He couldn't tell. Thomas, she whispered. My brother. He's asleep upstairs. She tried to sit up, gasped in pain. Her hands. The frostbite. Elias gently pushed her back down. Don't move yet. You nearly froze to death. Your hands and feet need more time. How long? You've been here about 12 hours. Frank Morrison found you on the North Road this morning. She closed her eyes. I got lost. I thought I knew the way. But everything looked the same, snow everywhere. I walked for days. I'm not sure. The stage drop you early? There was no stage. I came on the train to Silverton, then hired a wagon. But the driver, she stopped, shuddered. I jumped out, ran, got lost. Elias's jaw tightened. What'd the driver look like? Does it matter? I'm here now. It matters. Man tries to hurt a woman, he should answer for it. She opened her eyes, studied his face. You're Elias. Yes. Thomas's brother. Yes. A long pause. You don't look how I expected. How'd you expect? Softer, maybe. Warmer. She winced. I'm sorry. That was rude. It was honest. He pulled a chair over, sat. You want some water? She nodded. He helped her drink, supporting her head. Her throat worked painfully as she swallowed. Better? Yes, thank you. He set the cup aside. Silence stretched between them. Thomas told me about the arrangement, Elias said finally. Her face went still. Oh, I want you to know, I didn't ask for this. Didn't know about it until you showed up. She looked away. I see. That doesn't mean... He stopped. What was he trying to say? You're welcome to stay until you're healed, until you figure out what you want to do next. And then? Then that's your choice. You can stay, if you want, or I can arrange passage back east, whatever you decide. I can't go back east. Her voice was flat. Why not? She didn't answer. Elias waited. When it became clear she wasn't going to elaborate, he changed tack. The papers said you were a teacher. I was, in Boston. Why'd you leave? That's my business. Fair enough. He stood. You should rest. We'll talk more when you're stronger. Wait. She grabbed his sleeve with her good hand. The touch was unexpected, electric. I need to know. Are you married? Thomas said you were a widower, but I need to hear it from you. The question hit harder than it should have. I'm a widower. And you don't want a new wife? No. Ever? Ever. She released his sleeve. Then I'll leave as soon as I can travel. I won't impose. It's not about imposition. Then what's it about? How could he explain? How could he tell her that letting anyone close felt like inviting catastrophe? That every time he thought about caring for someone, he saw his wife's face, saw his son's tiny coffin? It's about being realistic, he said finally. Realistic. She laughed, a brittle sound. I traveled 2,000 miles to marry a stranger because my life fell apart and I had nowhere else to go. Realistic isn't really my strong suit anymore. What happened? I told you, that's my business. They stared at each other, two strangers both running from something, both stranded in this moment they'd never asked for. I'm going to check the stock, Elias said. Holler if you need anything. He left before she could respond. Outside, the night was brutally cold. He stood on the porch, breathing steam, looking at the dark valley. Somewhere up on the hill, under 2 feet of snow, were the graves of his wife and son. He'd avoided that hill for 3 years. Now there was a woman in his house. A woman his brother had sent. A woman who was supposed to save him, except he didn't want to be saved. Did he? She was stronger by morning. Not well, but stable. Elias moved her to the spare bedroom upstairs, the one Sarah had used as a sewing room. He stripped out the sewing supplies first, replaced them with a proper bed, fresh linens. Thomas helped wordlessly. The tension between them was thick enough to choke on. When they'd finished, Elias carried Lydia upstairs. She protested weakly but lacked the strength to really fight. He laid her in the bed, tucked the quilts around her. Better than the table? He asked. Much better, thank you. He turned to go. Elias. He stopped. I'm sorry I'm here. I know this isn't what you wanted. It's not your fault. It feels like it is. It's not, he said firmly. You didn't ask for this any more than I did. You're a victim in this, just like me. Victim. She tested the word. I suppose that's one way to put it. How would you put it? I'd say we're both people who got dealt bad hands and tried to make the best of it. You by shutting the world out. Me by running toward any option that looked like it might work. She paused. Neither of us were wrong, exactly. Just desperate. The honesty of it caught him off guard. Yeah, he said quietly. Yeah, that sounds about right. He left her to rest. Downstairs, Thomas was waiting. We need to talk, Thomas said. No, we don't. Eli, I'm not doing this right now. Elias grabbed his coat. I've got work to do. It's snowing. Then I'll work in the snow. He headed for the door. Thomas blocked his path. Move, Elias said. Not until you talk to me. There's nothing to say. You made a choice that wasn't yours to make. Now we're dealing with it. End of story. I'm sorry. Elias laughed harshly. You're sorry. That fixes everything, doesn't it? Sorry I lied to you for months. Sorry I made commitments in your name. Sorry I manipulated a desperate woman into coming here under false pretenses. But hey, I'm sorry, so we're good. I was trying to help. You were trying to fix something that wasn't broken. You were broken, Thomas shouted. You are broken, and I couldn't just stand by and watch you die inside. So you forced your solution on me. You took away my choice. Because you weren't making any choices. You were just existing, day after day, month after month, year after year, just going through the motions. That's not living. It's my life. It's a waste. Elias's fist flew before he could stop it, caught Thomas in the jaw, sent him stumbling back. Thomas touched his lip, came away with blood. They stared at each other. Go, Elias said quietly. Get out of my house. Eli said, out. Thomas grabbed his coat, left without another word. The door slammed. Silence rushed in. Elias stood in the empty room, fist throbbing, heart hammering. Upstairs he could hear Lydia moving around, settling into the bed. He'd hit his brother, the only family he had left, over a woman he didn't even want. Except that wasn't quite true, was it? He wasn't angry about Lydia. He was angry about the choice being taken from him, about Thomas deciding what he needed without asking. He was angry about being forced to confront the question he'd been avoiding for 3 years. Was Thomas right? Was he just existing? He didn't want to think about it, so he did what he always did. He went to work. The next week passed in uneasy quiet. Lydia recovered slowly. The frostbite on her fingers and toes faded from black to purple to angry red. She could walk now, carefully, wincing with each step. Elias brought her meals, changed her bandages, said little. She didn't push for conversation, seemed content to heal in silence. Thomas didn't come back. On the 8th day, Elias was in the barn when he heard footsteps. He looked up. Lydia stood in the doorway, dressed in one of Sarah's old dresses he'd left for her. It hung loose. She was thinner than Sarah had been, but it fit well enough. "You're up," he said. "I needed to move. I was going stir-crazy in that room." "You should be resting." "I've been resting for a week. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. He could see the pain in how she stood, how she favored her left foot, but he didn't argue. "Can I help?" she asked. "Help?" "With whatever you're doing, I want to be useful." "You're recovering. That's enough." "No, it's not." She moved into the barn, looked around. "I'm living in your house, eating your food, wearing your dead wife's clothes. The least I can do is earn my keep." The mention of Sarah was like a knife between his ribs. "Those clothes, I know whose they were. I'm sorry if wearing them bothers you." "It doesn't bother me." It did. But what was he supposed to say? That seeing another woman in Sarah's dresses made him feel like his past was being erased? That it made him feel guilty and angry and confused all at once? "I'm mucking stalls," he said instead. "Not exactly pleasant work." "I'm not afraid of unpleasant work." "You were a teacher." "Teachers clean. We're not delicate flowers." He almost smiled. "All right, there's a spare pitchfork by the door." She grabbed it, followed him to the first stall. The mare inside nickered softly. "She's beautiful," Lydia said. "That's Duchess. Raised her from a foal." "Can I?" Lydia reached toward the mare. "Go ahead, she's gentle." Lydia stroked Duchess's nose. The mare leaned into it, eyes half closing. Something in Lydia's expression softened. "I've never been this close to a horse before," she said. "Never?" "We didn't have horses in Boston, just carriages." "Different world. Very different." She looked at him. "Is this what you always wanted? Ranching?" "Wanted doesn't really figure into it. This is what I'm good at." "That's not the same thing." "No, but it's enough." They worked in silence for a while, moving from stall to stall. Lydia was slow, careful with her injured feet, but she didn't complain, didn't stop. By the time they finished, sweat darkened the back of her dress, despite the cold. "Thank you," Elias said. "For what?" "Helping. I told you, I want to be useful." "You are, but—" He hesitated. "You don't have to prove anything. You're welcome here, work or no work." "Am I?" She met his eyes. "Because it doesn't feel that way." "What do you mean?" "You barely speak to me. You avoid me when you can. You look at me like I'm something painful you'd rather not acknowledge." She wasn't accusing, just stating facts. "I get it. I'm a reminder of what your brother did. I'm a complication you didn't ask for, but if I'm going to stay here, even temporarily, I need to know where I stand." Elias set down his pitchfork. You want honesty? Please. I don't know where you stand. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with you. I don't know if you should stay or go. I don't know anything except that my brother took a choice from both of us, and now we're stuck dealing with it. Stuck, she repeated. Bad word choice. Accurate word choice. She crossed her arms. Here's my honesty. I came here because I had no other options. My parents died 2 years ago. Cholera. I was teaching at a girls' school, living in a boarding house. Then the headmaster's son. She stopped, started again. He decided I should be his mistress. I refused. He got angry, forced himself on me. When I reported it, they didn't believe me. Said I must have led him on, fired me, destroyed my reputation. No other school would hire me. I couldn't afford this boarding house. I was 3 weeks from being on the street when I saw the bride service advertisement. Elias felt something cold settle in his chest. The headmaster's son is still teaching there, living his life like nothing happened, while I'm here 2,000 miles away begging a stranger to let me stay because I have nowhere else to go. You're not begging, aren't I? Her voice cracked. I made one desperate choice after another trying to survive, and now I'm here, in a dead woman's dress, sleeping in a dead woman's house, facing a man who wishes I'd never come. If that's not begging, I don't know what is. The words hung between them, raw and true. I don't wish you'd never come, Elias said quietly. Yes, you do. I wish the situation was different. I wish my brother had asked first. I wish... He stopped. What did he wish? I wish I could be the man you thought you were coming to meet, but I'm not. I'm just someone trying to get through each day without falling apart. That's all I've got. Lydia looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, she said. Okay. That's honest. I can work with honest. She picked up her pitchfork again. What's next? Lydia, what's next? She repeated firmly. He studied her. This woman who'd been assaulted, abandoned, and nearly frozen to death. Who was standing in his barn, covered in horse manure, asking what she could do to help. Maybe Thomas was wrong about a lot of things. But he'd been right about one thing. Lydia Hart was braver than both of them. Chicken coop needs cleaning, Elias said finally. If you're up for it, lead the way. They worked until sunset, then came inside for a late supper. Elias cooked, stew from the venison he'd hunted last month. They ate at the table in silence that felt less hostile than before. Afterward, Lydia washed the dishes while Elias stoked the fire. The domesticity of it was strange, uncomfortable, but not entirely unpleasant. I'll be leaving at first light, he said. Riding down to see Thomas. Make sure he's all right. You fought. You heard that? Hard not to. Sound carries in this house. Yeah, we fought. Because of me. Because of choices he made. Not you. She dried the last plate, set it aside. Do you want me gone when you get back? The question surprised him. No. Are you sure? Was he? He looked at her, at this stranger who'd somehow become part of his daily routine in just over a week, who worked without complaining, who asked hard questions, who made the house feel less empty. I'm sure, he said. Stay as long as you need. She smiled. It was small, tentative, but real. Thank you, Elias. Don't thank me yet. Winter up here is brutal. You might change your mind. I've survived worse. He believed her. Mats. Elias rode down to Thomas's cabin before dawn. It was an hour's ride through snow-heavy pines. The cabin sat in a clearing near a creek, small, neat, well-built. Thomas had always been good with his hands. Smoke rose from the chimney. Elias dismounted, knocked. Thomas opened the door, saw him, went still. Can I come in? Elias asked. Thomas stepped aside. The cabin was warm, sparse. A bed in one corner, table and chairs, stove. Thomas's rifle hung on the wall. Everything in its place. Coffee? Thomas asked. Yeah. They sat at the table. Thomas poured 2 cups. Neither spoke. Finally, Elias broke the silence. I'm sorry I hit you. Thomas touched his jaw, still bruised. I deserved it. Maybe. Doesn't make it right. You were right to be angry. I overstepped. Yeah, you did. Elias sipped his coffee. It was terrible, burned and bitter. But I've been thinking about what you said, about just existing. Thomas looked up. You weren't wrong, Elias continued. I have been going through the motions for 3 years. I just didn't know how to do anything else. And now? Now there's a woman in my house who needs help, who's got nowhere else to go. And I figure maybe helping her is a start at doing something that matters again. So she's staying? For now. If she wants. Thomas's expression shifted, something like hope creeping in. And after? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Thomas hesitated. Do you think you could ever see her as more than someone who needs help? No, Elias said flatly. She's staying because she needs a place to recover and get back on her feet. That's it. But no, Thomas, I'm not having this conversation. She's not a solution to my grief. She's a person you manipulated. The least I can do is give her a safe place to land without making it about what I want or need. Thomas looked down at his coffee. I really did think I was helping. I know. And maybe in some twisted way you were. Because you're right. I was dying inside. But this, he gestured vaguely, this isn't the answer. There might not be an answer. I might just be broken forever. You're not broken. Then what am I? Grieving. There's a difference. Elias didn't have a response to that. They finished their coffee in silence. When Elias stood to go, Thomas walked him to the door. You coming back to the ranch? Elias asked. We could use the help. You want me back? You're my brother. Of course I want you back. Thomas's throat worked. Okay, yeah. I'll come by tomorrow. Good. Elias mounted his horse. And Thomas? Next time you want to help me, ask first. Thomas almost smiled. Deal. Elias rode back through the morning light, watching the sun climb over the mountains. The valley spread below him, vast and white and silent. When he reached the ranch, Lydia was in the yard, scattering feed for the chickens. She looked up as he approached, shielding her eyes against the sun. Everything all right? She called. Yeah, Thomas is coming back tomorrow. Good. You need him. We both do. Ranch this size, it's too much for one person. She nodded, went back to the chickens. Elias dismounted, led his horse to the barn. As he unsaddled, he caught himself thinking about the week ahead, about the work they'd do, about meals shared in silence that was slowly becoming comfortable, about maybe, possibly, learning to live again. Not heal. He didn't think he'd ever fully heal, but love. Just a little, just enough. It wasn't much. But for the first time in 3 years, it felt like something. Thomas returned the next afternoon with 2 rabbits slung over his shoulder and guilt still written across his face. He stood in the doorway like he was waiting for permission to enter his own family's ranch. Lydia was at the stove, stirring something that smelled like herbs and venison. She looked up, took in Thomas's hesitation, and made the decision for both brothers. You must be Thomas, she said. I'm Lydia. Come in before you let all the heat out. Thomas stepped inside, closed the door carefully. Ma'am. Don't ma'am me. I'm 24, not 60. She pointed at the rabbits. Those for supper? Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes. Good. We can make a stew. Elias, can you show him where to clean them? Elias looked at her, then at Thomas, then back at her. She'd just taken charge of his kitchen like she'd been doing it for years. Part of him wanted to resist. The other part was too tired to argue. Come on, he said to Thomas. They went out back to the cleaning station. Thomas laid the rabbits on the board, pulled out his knife. They worked in silence, the familiar rhythm of gutting and skinning taking over. She seems nice, Thomas said finally. She's been through hell. I know. I read her letters before I sent mine. The things that happened to her in Boston. She told me. Thomas's hand stilled. She did? Some of it. Enough. Elias rinsed blood from his hands in the bucket. You put her in a bad position. You know that, right? She came here thinking she'd have security, a husband, a future. Instead, she got a man who wants nothing to do with marriage and a situation built on lies. I know. Knowing doesn't fix it. I said I'd make it right. How? You gonna marry her yourself? Thomas looked up sharply. Would you want me to? The question caught Elias off guard. Would he? The thought of Lydia marrying Thomas, of her staying on the ranch but belonging to his brother, made something twist in his gut, which was ridiculous. He'd known her for barely 2 weeks, had no claim on her, no right to feel anything about who she married. "Do what you want," he said roughly. "Just be honest with her this time." Thomas nodded, went back to skinning. They brought the cleaned rabbits inside. Lydia took them without comment, started cutting them into pieces for the stew pot. Thomas washed up, then stood awkwardly in the middle of the room. "I should apologize," he said to Lydia, "for what I did, bringing you here under false pretenses. It was wrong." Lydia kept cutting. "Yes, it was. I thought I was helping both of you, but I wasn't thinking about what you wanted, what either of you wanted. No, you weren't." Thomas waited for more. When it didn't come, he shifted his weight. "I'm sorry." "I know." She looked up then, met his eyes. "But sorry doesn't change anything. I'm still here. Your brother still doesn't want a wife, and I still have nowhere else to go. So we're all stuck making the best of your good intentions." The words were sharp but not cruel, just honest. "I'll do whatever I can to make it right," Thomas said. "Then start by treating me like a person instead of a problem you created." She dumped the rabbit pieces into the pot. "And set the table. Supper's in an hour." Thomas did as he was told. Elias watched the exchange from his chair by the fire, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Lydia had handled Thomas better than he had. No yelling, no violence, just calm, cutting honesty that left no room for excuses. She was stronger than she looked. The three of them ate together that night, passing bread and bowls in near silence. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't hostile either, just careful, like they were all learning the edges of this new arrangement. After supper, Thomas stood. "I should head back." "Stay," Elias said. "Your room's still empty." Thomas hesitated. "You sure?" "Ranch needs work. Easier if you're here." It wasn't forgiveness, not quite, but it was a step. Thomas recognized it for what it was. "All right, thanks." He headed upstairs. Lydia started clearing dishes. "You don't have to do that," Elias said. "I know. I want to." "Why?" She looked at him, water dripping from the plate in her hand. "Because sitting still makes me think too much. Working keeps my hands busy and my mind quiet. That's all." He understood that better than he wanted to admit. "I'll dry," he said. They worked side by side, establishing a rhythm. Wash, rinse, dry, stack, simple, mindless, enough. "Your brother loves you," Lydia said after a while. "I know. He made a mistake, but his heart was in the right place." "Doesn't make the mistake okay." "No, but it makes it forgivable. Eventually." Elias set down a dried plate. "You forgive easy?" "No, but I've learned that holding grudges takes more energy than I have to spare. Life's hard enough without carrying around extra weight." "That's very practical." "I'm a practical person." She handed him another plate. "I have to be." They finished the dishes. Lydia wiped down the counter while Elias banked the fire. The house settled into nighttime quiet. "Thank you," Lydia said, "for letting me stay, for not sending me away." "You don't have to keep thanking me." "Yes, I do. You could have put me on the first wagon out of here. Instead, you're giving me time to figure out what comes next." "That matters. What do you think comes next?" She dried her hands on the towel, folded it carefully. "I don't know. Find work, maybe. If there are any schools nearby that need teachers. Or I could hire on as a housekeeper somewhere. I'm good with cooking, cleaning, mending. I can make myself useful." "You are useful. Here. Here isn't permanent." "Could be, if you wanted." The words were out before he could stop them. Lydia turned to look at him. "What are you saying?" What was he saying? He didn't want a wife. Didn't want complications. Didn't want to risk caring about someone who could be taken from him. But he also didn't want her to leave. Didn't want to go back to the empty house and silent meals and endless monotony of grief. "I'm saying you don't have to rush into anything," he said carefully. "Stay the winter, help out, figure things out, then decide." "And if I stay the winter?" "Then you stay the winter, no expectations, no obligations. Just a roof and meals in exchange for work. If that's how you want to frame it." She studied him, those gray-green eyes sharp and assessing. "You're a confusing man, Elias Mercer." "How so?" "You say you don't want anyone close, but you keep making room for people anyway." Making room isn't the same as letting them in, isn't it? He didn't have an answer to that. Lydia smiled, small and sad. I'll stay the winter. We'll see what happens after that. All right. She went upstairs. Elias stood in the empty kitchen, listening to her footsteps overhead, then Thomas's door closing. The house that had been silent for 3 years now held voices, movement, life. It should have felt like an intrusion. Instead, it just felt less lonely. Winter deepened. The snow came heavy and frequent, burying the valley under white silence. The three of them fell into a routine. Elias and Thomas handled the livestock, repaired fences, cut firewood. Lydia took over the kitchen, the cleaning, the mending. She was good at all of it, efficient and thorough. But she was also curious. "Teach me," she said one morning, watching Elias saddle Duchess. "Teach you what?" "To ride." He paused. "Why?" "Because if I'm going to live out here, I should know how. What if there's an emergency and you're both gone? What if I need to get to town?" "Town's 6 miles. You'd freeze before you got halfway." "Then teach me so I won't freeze." He looked at her, standing there in Sarah's old coat and worn boots, chin lifted in that stubborn way she had. She wasn't asking. She was demanding. "Fine," he said, "but not on Duchess. She's too spirited for a beginner." He brought out Mercy, the oldest mare, gentle as a kitten. Lydia approached cautiously. "She won't bite," Elias said. "I know. I'm just not used to anything this big." "She weighs about 900 pounds. You weigh what, 110? She could kill you without trying, so you approach with respect, not fear. Let her see you. Let her smell you. Show her you're not a threat." Lydia did as instructed, moving slowly. Mercy snuffled at her hair, her coat. Lydia laughed, the sound bright and unexpected. "She's soft," she said. "And strong. Remember that. Now, left foot in the stirrup. Grab the saddle horn, pull yourself up." She tried, failed, tried again. On the 3rd attempt, she made it into the saddle, graceless but successful. "How's it feel?" Elias asked. "Terrifying." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." He adjusted her feet in the stirrups, showed her how to hold the reins. "Don't pull hard. She's got a sensitive mouth. Just gentle pressure. And sit up straight. Use your legs to balance, not your hands." They spent an hour walking circles around the corral. Lydia was awkward at first, gripping too tight, leaning too far forward. But she learned fast. By the end, she was sitting better, moving with the horse instead of against it. "That's enough for today," Elias said. Lydia dismounted, stumbled when she hit the ground. Elias caught her elbow, steadied her. "Your legs are going to hurt tomorrow," he said. "They hurt now. It gets easier." "Does it?" She wasn't talking about riding anymore. He could see it in her eyes, the weight of everything she was carrying, the assault, the shame, the long journey, the uncertain future. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does, not fast, not all at once, but eventually the hard parts become normal parts, and normal is survivable." "Is that what you did? Made your grief normal?" "I made it bearable. That's the best I could do." She nodded, understanding. "Thank you for the lesson. We'll do it again tomorrow, if you want." "I want." She walked back to the house, limping slightly. Elias watched her go, then turned to Mercy. "What do you think, girl? She gonna make it out here?" Mercy just huffed and nudged him for grain. Smart horse. The riding lessons became routine. Every morning after chores, Lydia would meet him at the corral. She progressed from walking to trotting to cantering, fell off twice, got back on both times without complaint. Her hands grew rough, her cheeks windburned. The pale Boston teacher was disappearing, replaced by someone harder. Thomas watched it all with quiet approval. "She's fitting in," he said one evening. They were in the barn, fixing a broken stall door. "She's adapting," Elias corrected. "That's different." "How?" "Fitting in means you belong. Adapting means you're surviving." "You think she doesn't belong here?" Elias drove a nail hard, splitting the wood. He cursed, pulled it out. "I think she's making the best of a bad situation, same as all of us." "She seems happy." "She seems busy, also different." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "Do you want her to be happy? Here, I mean. What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." Elias set down the hammer. "I don't know what I want. I know she deserves better than what she got. I know she's working hard and not complaining. I know. He stopped. What did he know? I know she makes the house feel less empty, but that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? No, it just means I'm getting used to having people around again, that's all. Thomas didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. That night, a storm rolled in. Wind howled down from the peaks, driving snow horizontal. The temperature plummeted. Elias checked the stock twice, making sure they had shelter and water. By midnight, the house was creaking under the assault. He was stoking the fire when he heard footsteps on the stairs. Lydia appeared, wrapped in a quilt, hair loose around her shoulders. "Can't sleep," she said. "Storm's bad." "I've heard worse." She sat in the chair across from him. "Boston gets nor'easters that'll blow the roof off. This is nothing. This is spring compared to January." "Then I'm glad I missed January." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire. Outside, wind screamed and snow battered the windows. "Can I ask you something?" Lydia said. "Depends what it is." "Your wife, what was she like?" Every muscle in his body went tight. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I'm wearing her clothes, sleeping in her house, sitting in what was probably her chair. It feels wrong not to know anything about her." "Sarah," Elias said. The name hurt. "Her name was Sarah." "Sarah," Lydia repeated softly. "She was kind, patient, good with animals, better with people. She could grow anything, had gardens everywhere, flowers and vegetables both. The house always smelled like fresh bread." He stared into the fire. "She was everything good about this place." "How'd you meet?" "Church social. She was serving pie. I was too nervous to talk to her. My older brother, Jacob, he pushed me over, told me to stop being a coward. I mumbled something stupid about the pie. She laughed. That was it." "Love at first sight?" "Something like that." "How long were you married?" 4 years before the fever, 4 years of the best life I could have imagined, then 6 days of hell, then nothing." Lydia pulled the quilt tighter. "What was your son's name?" "Daniel." His throat closed around the word. "He was 2, barely talking, just starting to walk without falling every 3 steps. He had Sarah's eyes and my stubborn streak." He had to stop, breathe. "I buried them on the same day. Sarah was 26, Daniel was 2, and I couldn't save either of them." "It wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I was the man of the house. I was supposed to protect them, keep them safe. Instead, I stood there while they burned with fever, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do." "Some things can't be protected against." "That doesn't make it easier." "No," she said quietly. "It doesn't." They sat with that truth. The fire crackled, the wind howled, 2 people who'd lost everything, sitting in the dark, holding on to whatever small warmth they could find. "Thank you," Lydia said finally. "For what?" "For telling me. I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't." He looked at her. "Your turn." "My turn?" "You know my ghosts. Fair's fair." She hesitated, then nodded. "My parents died when I was 22. Cholera epidemic. They got sick on a Monday, died on Friday. Both of them 12 hours apart. My father went first. My mother held on just long enough to tell me she loved me. Then she was gone. I'm sorry. They were good people, honest, hardworking. My father was a clerk. My mother took in sewing. They saved every penny to send me to teacher's college. Wanted me to have a better life than they did." "You became a teacher." "I did. Got hired at Miss Waverly's School for Girls. Respectable position, decent pay. I had a room at a boarding house, friends, a future. For 2 years I thought I'd made it. Thought I'd honored my parents' sacrifice." "What happened?" Her hands tightened on the quilt. "The headmaster's son, Charles. He was the Latin instructor. Handsome, charming, from a wealthy family. All the teachers fawned over him. He started paying attention to me. Compliments, small gifts, walks after classes. I thought I was stupid enough to think he was courting me. He wasn't. No, he was grooming me, making me trust him. Then one evening he cornered me in the library, locked the door, told me he'd been patient, that I owed him for his attentions." Her voice went flat. "I fought. It didn't matter. When it was over, he straightened his clothes and told me if I told anyone, he'd ruin me. Said no one would believe a poor orphan teacher over a Waverly." Elias's hands clenched into fists. "You reported it anyway." "I did. Went straight to the headmaster, told him everything. He listened, nodded, seemed sympathetic. Then he asked if I'd encouraged his son in any way. I said no. He asked if I'd been alone with him willingly. I said yes, but only because I thought we were friends. He said that was unfortunate, said it was my word against his son's. Then he fired me for inappropriate conduct and spread the word that I'd tried to seduce a student's brother. Son of a bitch. I couldn't get another position, couldn't afford my room. Was 3 weeks from homelessness when I saw the bride service advertisement. It promised respect, security, a fresh start. So I wrote to them. They matched me with a rancher in the Montana Territory who wanted a wife. I thought maybe this was my chance to start over, to be someone other than the ruined teacher from Boston. Instead, you got me. Instead, I got a man who never asked for me and a situation built on lies, but she looked at him. You've been kinder than you had to be. You gave me shelter when you could have turned me away. You're teaching me to survive out here. That counts for something. It counts for basic decency, that's all. Basic decency is rarer than you think. The fire popped. Sparks drifted up the chimney. We're a pair, aren't we? Lydia said. Both running from what we lost. Both trying to figure out how to keep going. Seems like it. Do you think it gets easier? Actually easier, not just bearable? Elias thought about Sarah's laugh, Daniel's tiny hands, the weight of grief he carried every day. I don't know, maybe. Or maybe you just get stronger at carrying it. That's not very hopeful. I'm not a very hopeful person. I noticed. She smiled slightly. But you're an honest one. I appreciate that. Honesty's all I've got left. It's more than most people offer. They sat until the fire burned low and the storm began to ease. Then Lydia stood, quilt wrapped around her shoulders. Thank you for trusting me with your story, she said. Thank you for trusting me with yours. She climbed the stairs, disappeared into the darkness above. Elias stayed by the fire, thinking about Sarah and Daniel, about Lydia's assault and his brother's misguided attempt at help, about how 3 broken people had ended up under one roof trying to pretend they weren't all drowning. Maybe that was all life was. People treading water together, hoping the current didn't pull them under. It wasn't much of a philosophy, but it was honest. Morning brought clear skies and knee-deep drifts. Thomas and Elias spent the day digging out paths, checking for winter damage. Lydia stayed inside, baking bread and mending shirts. When they came in for supper, the house smelled like yeast and wood smoke. Good? She asked, setting bowls of stew on the table. Better than good, Thomas said. You're spoiling us. Just earning my keep. They ate. Thomas talked about plans for spring planting, about expanding the herd, about hiring seasonal help if they could afford it. Elias half listened, watching Lydia. She was engaged, asking questions, offering ideas, acting like she'd be here to see those plans through. Maybe she would be. The thought didn't scare him as much as it should have. After supper, Thomas headed to bed early. Lydia washed dishes while Elias dried. Another routine, comfortable now. I've been thinking, Lydia said. About? Staying, past winter. His hands stilled. Yeah? If the offer still stands, if you still want the help. What changed? She rinsed a plate, handed it to him. I realized I don't want to go back east, don't want to find another teaching job or hire on as someone's housekeeper. She paused. I want to build something, here, if you'll let me. Build what? A life, a real one, not running, not hiding, just living. That's not much of a plan. It's the only plan I've got. Elias dried the plate, set it aside. You understand what you're signing up for. Winters are brutal, summers are short, the work never ends, and there's no guarantee any of it will work out. I understand. And you still want to stay? I still want to stay. He looked at her, at this woman who'd survived assault and abandonment and near death, who'd learned to ride and work and hold her own, who made his house feel like a home again. Then stay, he said. Her smile was bright enough to hurt. Thank you, Elias. Don't thank me yet. Wait till you've survived a full year. Then we'll see if you still want to thank me. I will. She sounded so certain. He didn't know how to tell her that certainty was dangerous out here, that the land and the weather and life itself had a way of crushing expectations. So he didn't. Just dried the last dish and let her have her hope. It was more than he had. Maybe that was enough. Spring came late and grudging, the snow retreating inch by stubborn inch up the mountainside. By April, the valley floor was visible again, brown and muddy and raw. Lydia had been at the ranch for 3 months. She could ride now without thinking about it, could shoot well enough to bring down a rabbit at 30 yards, could read weather in the clouds better than Thomas could. She'd also stopped sleeping through the night. Elias noticed because he didn't sleep much either. He'd hear her pacing upstairs, hear the floorboards creak as she moved from window to window. Sometimes she'd come downstairs, wrap herself in a blanket by the dying fire. He never asked what kept her awake. Figured she had her reasons, same as him. But on a Tuesday morning in late April, everything changed. Elias was in the barn when he heard horses, multiple horses coming fast. He grabbed his rifle, moved to the door. 3 riders were approaching from the south road, pushing their mounts hard. He didn't recognize them. Thomas appeared at his shoulder. Trouble? Don't know yet. The riders pulled up in the yard. The lead man was tall, well-dressed in a wool coat that cost more than most ranchers made in a month. His companions looked harder, meaner, hired muscle.
Come.
Can I help you? Elias called. The well-dressed man dismounted. I'm looking for someone. A woman. Dark hair, mid-20s, traveling alone. She would have arrived here sometime in February. Every instinct Elias had started screaming. Don't know anyone matching that description. No? The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. That's unfortunate, because I have reliable information that she was brought to this ranch after being found on the North Road. Information from who? The wagon driver who found her, Frank Morrison, cooperative fellow, once we explained the situation. Elias's grip tightened on the rifle. What situation? The woman I'm looking for is a thief. She stole valuable property from her employer in Boston and fled west. I've been hired to retrieve both the woman and the property. That's a lie. The words came from behind them. Lydia stood in the barn doorway, face pale but voice steady. She must have heard the horses, come to investigate. The well-dressed man's expression shifted to something predatory. Miss Hart. How convenient. My name is Lydia Mercer, she said. The lie came smooth, practiced. And I didn't steal anything. The headmaster's accounts ledger disagrees, as do several witnesses who saw you in his office the night the funds went missing. I was never in his office. I was dismissed weeks before any money disappeared. Dismissed for inappropriate conduct, yes. After you attempted to seduce the headmaster's son and then falsely accused him of assault, when he rejected you. Lydia flinched like she'd been struck. That's not what happened, she said. Isn't it? Because from where I stand, you're a disgraced teacher who fabricated assault claims to cover her own misconduct, then stole $300 from the school's operating fund to finance your escape. I didn't take any money. Then you won't mind returning to Boston to clear your name. I have authorization from the territorial marshal to escort you back for questioning. He pulled out a document, unfolded it, official-looking, with stamps and signatures. Elias couldn't tell if it was real or forged. She's not going anywhere, he said. The well-dressed man looked at him with mild interest. And you are? Her husband. Lydia's head snapped toward him. He kept his eyes forward. I see. The man folded the document away. Well, Mr. Mercer, I'm afraid marriage doesn't nullify theft charges. If your wife stole money, she'll need to answer for it. She didn't steal anything. You said it yourself. She was dismissed weeks before the money went missing. How's she supposed to have taken it? That's for the courts to determine. No court's going to find her guilty of something she couldn't have done. This is harassment, and if you don't get off my property in the next 30 seconds, I'm going to treat you like a trespasser. The 2 hired men shifted in their saddles. Hands drifted toward gun belts. I don't think you understand the situation, the well-dressed man said. I have legal authority here. And I have a Winchester. Legal authority stops at my property line. You're willing to risk arrest for harboring a fugitive? I'm willing to protect my wife from men who ride onto my land making accusations they can't prove. The standoff stretched. Thomas had moved to Elias's left, his own rifle now visible. 3 against 3, but Elias had the high ground and home advantage. The well-dressed man seemed to calculate the odds. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Get gone. For a moment, Elias thought they might push it. Then the man swung back into his saddle. We'll be back with the marshal, and when we return, you'll regret interfering. They wheeled their horses and rode off, disappearing down the south road. Elias waited until they were out of sight, then lowered his rifle. He turned to Lydia. She was shaking. "Inside," he said. "Now." They gathered in the kitchen. Lydia sat at the table, hands trembling so badly she had to clasp them together. Thomas paced. Elias stood by the window watching the road. "Who were they?" Thomas asked. "The headmaster's men," Lydia said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Or the Waverley family's men. Same thing." "The ones who—" "Yes. They came all this way. The Waverleys are wealthy, connected. Charles's father is friends with senators, judges, business magnates. If they want to destroy me, they have the resources to do it." "But the theft charge," Elias said, "is there any truth to it?" "No, I never took anything. But that doesn't matter. They've fabricated evidence, bought witnesses. They'll make it stick." "Why? You're already ruined, already gone. Why chase you all the way out here?" Lydia's laugh was bitter. "Because I dared to accuse Charles Waverley of assault. Because I made him look bad, even if no one believed me. The Waverleys don't forgive that kind of slight. They want me destroyed completely, prison if possible, dead if necessary." Thomas stopped pacing. "They'd kill you?" "They'd call it resisting arrest or attempting escape. But yes, they'd kill me. Happily." Elias's jaw tightened. "That's not going to happen. You can't stop them. They have legal documents, money, influence. What do you have? A ranch and a rifle?" "I have the truth. You didn't steal anything. Truth doesn't matter when the other side owns the judges." She was right, and they all knew it. Elias had seen it before, back east before he'd come west. Rich men making problems disappear, poor folks taking the fall for crimes they didn't commit. The law was supposed to be blind, but it saw money just fine. "So what do we do?" Thomas asked. "I run," Lydia said. "Again, further this time. Canada, maybe. Somewhere they won't follow." "No," Elias said. "No? You're not running. You're done running. This is your home now." "Elias, I meant what I said out there. You're my wife now. That's not just a story to keep them off you. If you want it, it's real. We get married, make it legal. Then you're under my protection, and they'll have to go through me to get to you." Lydia stared at him. "You don't mean that." "I do. You don't want a wife. You said so yourself." "I don't want to watch another person I care about get destroyed by people with more power than decency. I can live with being married. I can't live with letting them take you." Thomas looked between them. "Eli, think about what you're saying." "I have. You've known her 3 months. Long enough to know she doesn't deserve this. Long enough to know I'm not standing by and doing nothing." Lydia stood, moved to face him. "This isn't your fight. You're on my land. That makes it my fight. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me." "Then what do you want? To run forever? To spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for them to find you again?" "Better than dragging you down with me." "I'm already down. Have been for 3 years. At least this way I'm doing something that matters." Her eyes filled with tears. "You're insane." "Probably. You still haven't answered the question. Will you marry me? This is the worst proposal in history." "Not arguing that. But will you?" She wiped her eyes, tried to smile. Failed. "Yes. Yes, you stubborn, self-destructive fool. I'll marry you." "Good." He looked at Thomas. "We need to do it fast, before they come back with reinforcements. Know anyone who can perform a ceremony? Pastor William's in town, but he'll want bands posted, waiting period. No time for that. What about Judge Hendricks? He's been sick, might not even be alive still." "Then we ride to Silverton, find a justice of the peace there, get it done legal and recorded. That's a 2-day trip. Then we leave now." Lydia grabbed his arm. "Wait, what about the ranch, the stock? You can't just abandon everything." "Thomas can handle it for a few days." "And if they come back while you're gone?" Thomas stepped forward. "I can handle 3 men if I have to. They might bring more next time." "Then I'll handle more." He looked at Elias. "Go, get married, make it legal. I'll keep things running here." Elias clasped his brother's shoulder. "Thank you. Just come back alive, all right? I didn't bring her all this way just to lose both of you. They packed light, bedrolls, supplies for 3 days, rifles, and ammunition. Lydia changed into riding clothes, braided her hair tight. She looked scared but determined. They rode out within the hour, pushing hard south towards Silverton. The road was rough, still muddy from snowmelt. They made good time anyway, stopping only to rest the horses. By nightfall, they were 20 miles from the ranch. They made camp in a pine grove, built a small fire for warmth but no light. Elias took first watch while Lydia tried to sleep. She couldn't. "Talk to me," she said from her bedroll. "About what?" "Anything. I need to hear a voice besides the ones in my head." He thought for a moment. "When I was 12, my brother Jacob dared me to ride the meanest bull in the territory. Said I'd never have the guts, so I did it. Lasted about 4 seconds before that bull threw me into a fence and broke my arm in 2 places." "Did Jacob feel bad?" "Not even a little. Laughed himself sick while Ma set the bone. Then he made me do all his chores for a month because I was too stubborn to admit it hurt." "Where's Jacob now?" "Dead. Got kicked by a horse 5 years ago. Broke his neck instantly." "I'm sorry." "Me too. He was a pain in the ass, but he was my brother. Losing him hurt." Silence fell. Then Lydia spoke again. "I'm scared, Elias." "I know. What if this doesn't work? What if they find a way to take me anyway?" "Then we fight. And if we lose?" "Then we lose fighting. Better than not fighting at all." She was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you doing this? Really, it can't just be because I'm on your land." "It's not." "Then what is it?" He stared into the darkness, trying to find words for something he barely understood himself. "When Sarah died, I thought that was it. Thought I'd used up my chance at caring about someone. Didn't want to risk it again. But you showed up, half frozen and desperate, and you didn't ask for anything except a chance. You worked, you learned, you made yourself part of the ranch like you'd always been there. And somewhere along the way, I started giving a damn whether you lived or died. Started wanting you to stay. Not because my brother sent you, because you belong." "Elias, I'm not saying I love you. I don't know if I can love anyone again, but I care enough to fight for you." "That's got to count for something." She climbed out of her bedroll, came to sit beside him. In the dim starlight, her face was shadowed, unreadable. "It counts for everything," she said quietly. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. They sat like that for an hour, silent, while the fire burned down to embers and the stars wheeled overhead. They reached Silverton the next afternoon. The town was bigger than Elias remembered, sprawling and loud with mining money. They found the justice of the peace in an office above a saloon. "We need to get married," Elias said. The justice was an old man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers. He looked them over. "You got witnesses?" "No. Need 2. "Can you provide them?" "For a fee." "How much?" $10. It was robbery, but Elias didn't argue. He paid. The justice called in 2 clerks from the land office next door. They stood looking bored while the justice pulled out the marriage register. "Names?" "Elias Daniel Mercer, Lydia Ann Hart." The justice wrote carefully. "Previous marriages?" "Widower," Elias said. "Never married," Lydia added. "Objections to this union?" "No." "Then repeat after me." The ceremony was perfunctory, barely 5 minutes. Elias spoke the words without stumbling. Lydia's voice trembled but held. The justice pronounced them married, made them sign the register, took another $5 for the certificate. "Congratulations," he said, handing over the paper. "You're legally wed." Outside, Lydia stared at the certificate. "That's it? We're married?" "That's it." "I thought it would feel different." "Does it feel the same?" "I don't know what it feels like." Elias took the certificate, folded it carefully into his coat pocket. "Feels like we just bought ourselves some protection. That's enough for now." They found a boarding house, got a room, 2 beds, which the landlady noted with a raised eyebrow, but no comment. They ate in the common room, beef stew and hard bread, not talking much. Upstairs, Lydia sat on one bed, Elias on the other. The space between them felt vast. "What happens now?" she asked. "We go back. Live our lives. If those men return, we show them the certificate and tell them to go to hell. And if they don't accept it, then we make them accept it." "Elias, these aren't reasonable men. They won't just give up because I'm married." Then what do you want me to do? We've done everything we can legally. The rest is up to them. I want you to let me go. Annul the marriage, put me on a stage to Canada. Save yourself before this gets worse. No. Why are you so stubborn? Because for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Because I'm tired of being afraid of caring about people. Because you deserve better than running for the rest of your life. He looked at her directly. And because I meant my vows, for better or worse. I'm not walking away from that. Lydia's eyes filled. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but I'll die doing the right thing. That's more than most people get. She crossed the space between the beds, sat beside him. I don't want you to die. Not planning on it. Good. She took his hand. Her palm was warm, calloused from work. Because I don't want to be a widow before I've even figured out how to be a wife. You're doing fine so far. We've been married for 4 hours. Like I said, fine so far. She almost smiled. Almost. They sat in silence until the lamp burned low. Then Lydia went to her bed, Elias to his. They slept badly, both listening for sounds of pursuit that didn't come. Morning brought rain. They rode back through it, cold and miserable but making good time. By evening, they were within sight of the ranch. Thomas met them in the yard, soaking wet. Thank God. I was starting to worry. Any trouble? Elias asked. None, they haven't been back. Good. He dismounted, helped Lydia down. We're married. Legal and recorded. Thomas's face split in a grin. Congratulations. Don't get excited. It's a practical arrangement. Sure it is. Thomas looked at Lydia. Welcome to the family. Officially. Thank you. She managed a smile. I think. They went inside. The house was warm, the stove stoked. Thomas had kept everything running smooth. Lydia changed into dry clothes while Elias and Thomas tended the horses. You really did it, Thomas said. Had to. And you're okay with it, being married again? Elias stripped the saddle, hung it to dry. I'm okay with protecting her. The rest, I'll figure out as I go. You care about her. I said I did. More than you're admitting. Don't push it, Thomas. His brother held up his hands. I'm just saying, you wouldn't have married her if you didn't feel something. I feel like she deserves a chance. That's all. Keep telling yourself that. Inside, Lydia was making coffee. The three of them sat around the table, warming their hands on the cups, not saying much. The tension from the past 2 days was still there, coiled tight. What's the plan? Thomas asked finally. We wait, Elias said. See if they come back. If they do, we stand firm. Show them the marriage certificate. Tell them to take it up with the territorial court if they have a problem. And if they try to take her anyway? They won't. How can you be sure? Because I won't let them. Thomas nodded slowly. All right, then I guess we wait. They waited for 3 days. Nothing happened. The ranch work continued. Lydia moved her things into Elias's room, though they still slept in separate beds pushed to opposite walls. It was an awkward arrangement, but neither mentioned it. On the 4th day, Thomas rode to town for supplies. He came back white-faced. They're here, he said. The well-dressed man and about 6 others. They're asking around about Lydia, showing people some kind of warrant. Elias's blood went cold. What kind of warrant? Federal? For theft and fleeing prosecution. Frank Morrison confirmed Lydia was here. So did half the town. They're coming, Eli, today. Maybe within the hour. Lydia stood. I need to run. No, Elias said. They have a federal warrant. That trumps marriage. They can take me anyway. Not without a fight. I'm not worth dying for. That's not your call to make. She grabbed his shoulders. Listen to me. If you fight federal marshals, they'll arrest you or kill you. Either way, I lose you and end up in their hands anyway. The only way this works is if I disappear before they arrive. Where will you go? North, into the mountains. I can survive a few weeks on my own. Not in spring snow, you can't. I'll take my chances. Elias looked at Thomas. How long do we have? Hour. Maybe less. He made a decision. Thomas packed supplies for 2 weeks, food, ammunition, warm clothes. Lydia, saddle Mercy, and the pack horse. I'm going with you. No, Yes, you're not going alone. If we're running, we run together. The ranch. Thomas can handle it. He's been doing it for years. Elias turned to his brother. Tell them I took her north. Don't tell them which route. Stall as long as you can. They'll arrest me for helping. Then don't help. Tell them the truth. We left. You don't know where we went. You tried to stop us, but we wouldn't listen. That's not much of a lie. Then it'll be convincing. They moved fast. Thomas threw supplies together while Lydia and Elias saddled horses. Within 20 minutes, they were mounted and ready. Thomas handed up the supply packs. Where will you go? Better if you don't know, Elias said. Take care of the place. We'll send word when it's safe. And if it's never safe? Then you've got yourself a ranch. He spurred his horse forward. Lydia followed. They rode hard north into the high country, as behind them the sound of approaching horses echoed through the valley. The mountain trail was barely visible under new snow. Elias led them higher, away from the main paths, into country he'd hunted in years ago. The horses struggled with the grade but kept moving. Behind them, the valley disappeared into mist and distance. They rode until dark, then made camp in a shallow cave carved into the rock face. No fire. Too risky. They ate dried meat and hard biscuits, wrapped themselves in blankets against the cold. We can't stay up here long, Lydia said, her breath fogged in the freezing air. A week, maybe 2, then we'll run out of supplies. I know. So what's the plan? Survive. Keep moving. Hope they give up. They won't give up. The Waverleys don't quit. Elias checked the rifle, made sure it was loaded and dry. Then we need to change the game. How? I'm working on it. She pulled the blanket tighter. You shouldn't have come. You should have stayed at the ranch, told them I forced you to help me. They would have believed it. No, they wouldn't, and even if they did, I wasn't letting you do this alone. Why? I'm nothing to you, a stranger your brother brought. We've been married 4 days. You don't owe me this. He looked at her across the darkness. You're not nothing, and I do owe you. For what? For making me remember what it feels like to care about something other than my own grief. For working every day without complaint. For being brave enough to build a life from nothing. He paused. For being you. She didn't respond, just stared at him with those gray-green eyes that saw too much. Get some sleep, he said. I'll take first watch. She didn't argue. Curled up in her blanket, back against the cave wall. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Elias sat at the cave mouth, rifle across his knees, watching the trail below for signs of pursuit. None came. But he knew they were out there. Somewhere in the darkness, men with warrants and guns and the certainty of the law on their side. Men who wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. He'd made his choice. Now he had to live with it, or die with it. Either way, he wasn't backing down. They moved at first light, staying high on the ridgeline. The air was thin, hard to breathe. The horses labored. By midday, they'd covered maybe 5 miles. At this rate, they'd be out of the mountains in a week. Then what? Canada was still hundreds of miles north. They'd never make it. Around noon, they stopped to rest the horses. Lydia dismounted stiffly, her face pale with cold and exhaustion. This isn't working, she said. We just need to keep moving. To where? We can't go to Canada. We don't have the supplies or the time. They'll catch us before we're halfway there. Then we don't go to Canada. Where then? Elias scanned the landscape. Mountains in every direction, endless and white and unforgiving. But to the west, he could just make out a different kind of terrain. Flatter, wider. Crow territory, he said. What? Crow Nation, about 30 miles west. If we can reach their land, we might be able to negotiate sanctuary. Will they help us? Don't know, but federal marshals can't operate on tribal land without permission. It'd at least buy us time. Time for what? To figure out how to clear your name. Lydia laughed bitterly. Clear my name? With what evidence? The Waverleys have fabricated everything. No one's going to believe me over them. Someone might, if we can find the real thief. The real thief? Someone stole that money. If it wasn't you, then someone else did it. Find them, prove it, and the charges fall apart. That could take months, years. So, we've got time now. Might as well use it. She studied him. You really believe we can do this? I believe it's worth trying. Better than running forever. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right, Crow territory, let's go. They turned west, descending from the high peaks into rolling foothills. The going was easier here, the snow patchy. They made better time. By sunset, they'd covered nearly 15 miles. Camp that night was in a stand of aspens still bare from winter. Elias risked a small fire for warmth and to cook a thin stew. They ate in silence, both too tired to talk. Lydia fell asleep almost immediately. Elias took watch again, though exhaustion pulled at him. He was nodding off when he heard it. Horses. Multiple horses. Coming from the east. He doused the fire, grabbed his rifle, shook Lydia awake. She came alert instantly. What? Quiet. They're close. They waited in the darkness. The sound of horses grew louder, then stopped. Voices carried through the trees. Trail goes cold here. They camped. Look, fire pit's still warm. Can't be more than a few hours ahead. We push through the night, we'll catch them by morning. Elias recognized the voice. The well-dressed man from the ranch. He counted at least 4 distinct voices, maybe more. What do we do? Lydia whispered. Move. Now. Quiet as you can. They gathered their gear in seconds, loaded the horses without speaking. Elias led them away from the camp, moving perpendicular to their original trail. Behind them, the voices continued, Spread out, search the area. They can't have gone far. They walked the horses for an hour, putting distance between themselves and their pursuers. When Elias was sure they were clear, he mounted up. They rode through the night, navigating by starlight, trusting the horses to find safe footing. By dawn, they were in different country entirely. Grassland, open and exposed, no cover for miles. We're sitting ducks out here, Lydia said. I know, but we're also faster. No trees to slow us down. And no trees to hide behind when they catch up. Then we don't let them catch up. They pushed the horses hard. The animals were tired but game, settling into a ground-eating lope. By mid-morning, they'd crossed into territory Elias didn't recognize. Hills gave way to flatter ground, cut by dry stream beds and dotted with sage. Around noon, they saw riders on the horizon. 3 of them, coming from the north. Not their pursuers. Different horses. Different bearing. Crow scouts. Elias reined in. Let me do the talking. The scouts approached slowly, rifles ready, but not aimed. They were young men, well armed, watching Elias and Lydia with expressions that gave nothing away. The lead scout spoke in accented English. You're on Crow land, state your business. We're seeking refuge, Elias said. We're being pursued by federal marshals. We need sanctuary. Why should we give you sanctuary? Because the woman they're hunting didn't commit any crime. She's being persecuted by powerful men in the east who want to silence her. The scout looked at Lydia. Is this true? Yes, she said. I was assaulted. When I reported it, they accused me of theft and issued a false warrant. We just want safety until we can prove my innocence. The scouts conferred in their own language. Elias couldn't follow the words, but the tone was skeptical. Finally, the lead scout spoke again. We'll take you to the council. They will decide. But you must surrender your weapons. Not happening, Elias said. Then you can't enter our territory. We're already in your territory. And we can escort you out. Your choice. Elias looked at Lydia. She gave a small nod. He sighed, pulled his rifle from its scabbard, handed it over. Lydia did the same. The scouts collected their weapons, gestured for them to follow. They rode for 2 hours, heading deeper into Crowland. Eventually, they reached a settlement. Lodges arranged in a loose circle, horses corralled, people going about daily work. Children stopped playing to watch them pass. Women paused in their tasks. Men tracked them with hard eyes. The scouts led them to the largest lodge. An older man emerged, his face weathered and strong. The lead scout spoke to him in Crow, gesturing at Elias and Lydia. The older man studied them. I am Strong Bear. I lead this community. The scouts say you seek sanctuary. Yes, sir, Elias said. We're being pursued by men who mean to harm my wife. We need time to prove her innocence. These men are federal marshals? They claim to be, but they're working for a private family. The law is just an excuse. Strong Bear's expression didn't change. And you think our land will protect you? I'm hoping you'll honor the treaties that say federal agents need permission to operate here. Treaties, Strong Bear's laugh was sharp. The government breaks treaties when convenient. What makes you think they'll honor this one? Because breaking it means conflict, and the government doesn't want conflict with the Crow. Not right now, with the mining interests so fragile. It was a gamble. Elias didn't know the political situation well enough to be sure, but Strong Bear's eyes narrowed, considering. You know something of our situation. I know you have leverage. I'm asking you to use it. In exchange for what? What do you need? Strong Bear looked at Lydia. Can you teach? She blinked. Yes. I was a teacher in Boston. Our children need education. The government school is far and hostile. If you teach our children while you're here, we will consider granting you sanctuary. Lydia straightened. I can do that. How many children? 20, maybe more, different ages. You would need to teach reading, writing, mathematics, and English. I can do that, she repeated. When do I start? Tomorrow. Strong Bear turned to Elias. And you, can you work? I can, whatever you need. We're expanding the horse herd. We need corrals built, foals trained. You know horses? I've been ranching for 10 years. I know horses. Then you'll work with our horse master. Earn your keep. Strong Bear paused. But understand, if the marshals come with force, with soldiers, we won't fight for you. We'll turn you over rather than risk our people. I understand. And if we discover you've lied about why you're here, we'll turn you over regardless. We haven't lied. Then you have sanctuary. For now. Relief flooded through Elias. Beside him, Lydia let out a breath she'd been holding. Thank you, she said. Strong Bear nodded. The scouts will show you where to sleep. Tomorrow, the work begins. They were given a small lodge at the edge of the settlement. It was simple. Hide walls, dirt floor, a fire pit in the center. But it was warm and private. Their weapons were returned with a warning to use them only for hunting, never against the Crow. That night they sat by the fire, exhausted but safe. For the moment. That was smart, Lydia said. Offering to teach. You offered. I just didn't stop you. Still, it bought us time. She poked at the fire. Do you really think we can prove my innocence from here? I think we can try. Thomas can ask questions in town, maybe send letters east. If we can find out who really took that money, we've got a case. And if we can't, then we figure out Plan B. What's Plan B? Don't know yet, but we'll think of something. She smiled slightly. You're very optimistic for someone who's usually so grim. I'm not optimistic. I'm stubborn. There's a difference. What's the difference? Optimism is thinking things will work out. Stubborn is making them work out whether they want to or not. And which one are you? Stubborn? Always have been. She leaned against his shoulder. It was the first time she'd initiated contact like that. He went still, not sure what to do. Thank you, she said quietly, for all of this, for not giving up on me. I'm not giving up, just getting started. Still, I know what you risked, what you're still risking. You're my wife, that means something. Does it? We barely know each other. I know enough. I know you're brave and smart and stronger than you think. I know you deserve better than being hunted by rich men who can't stand being told no. I know... He stopped. What else did he know? I know I care what happens to you. That's enough for now. She tilted her head up to look at him. In the firelight, her face was soft, vulnerable. Elias? The lodge flap opened. A young woman entered, carrying blankets and a basket of food. She set them down without speaking, gave them both a long look, then left. The moment broke. Lydia sat up, took the blankets, spread them near the fire. We should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Yeah. They arranged their bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire, same as always. But something had shifted. Elias could feel it in the air between them, something unspoken and fragile. He fell asleep thinking about the way she'd leaned against him, the trust in that simple gesture, the warmth. He woke to shouting. Outside the lodge, voices raised in alarm. He grabbed his rifle, pushed through the flap. Dawn light painted the settlement pink and gold. People were running toward the eastern edge. Strong Bear stood with his scouts, looking out across the grassland. In the distance, riders approached, at least a dozen of them. The marshals had found them. Elias moved to Strong Bear's side. How long do we have? An hour. Maybe less. What are you going to do? That depends on them. If they come peacefully, request your surrender through proper channels, I'll consider it. If they come with guns and threats, we'll send them away. And if they don't leave? Strong Bear didn't answer. The riders drew closer. Elias recognized the well-dressed man at the front. Beside him rode a man in a federal marshal's uniform. The rest looked like hired guns. They stopped at the edge of the settlement. The marshal dismounted, approached on foot. Strong Bear met him halfway. I'm Marshal Dawson, the man said. I'm here for a fugitive, a woman named Lydia Hart, wanted for theft in Boston. I'm told she's here. This is Crowland, Strong Bear said. You have no authority here. I have a federal warrant that gives me authority anywhere in the territory. Not without permission from the tribal council, which you don't have. Then I'm requesting permission. Hand over the fugitive and we'll leave peacefully. The woman claims she's innocent, that the charges are fabricated. That's for a court to decide, not you. Strong Bear's expression hardened. And if I refuse, then I'll return with soldiers and take her by force. Either way, she's coming with me. Question is whether people die in the process. Elias stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. The marshal looked at him. And you are? Her husband, Elias Mercer. Mr. Mercer, you're interfering with federal business. I can arrest you too. Try it. The well-dressed man spoke up. Marshal, we don't need him. Just the woman. The woman is my wife. Legally married. You want her? You go through me. The marshal's hand drifted toward his gun. That can be arranged. Stop. Strong Bear's voice cut through the tension. There will be no violence here. Marshal, I'm denying your request. The woman stays under our protection while we investigate her claims. If she's guilty, we'll turn her over. If she's innocent, the charges should be dropped. You don't have the authority. I have the authorities on my land. Leave now, or I'll have you escorted out. The marshal looked around. Crow warriors had emerged from the lodges, armed and ready. 20, 30, more. Enough to make a fight costly. This isn't over, the marshal said. No, Strong Bear agreed. It's not, but it's over for today. The marshal mounted up, gestured to his men. They turned and rode back the way they'd come, but the well-dressed man lingered, staring at Elias. You can't hide forever, he called. Eventually we'll get what we came for. Keep telling yourself that, Elias called back. The man spurred his horse and followed the others. Strong Bear turned to Elias. That bought you time. Not much. A week? Maybe 2. Then they'll come back with more men, more authority. You need to use that time wisely. I will, thank you. Don't thank me, thank your wife. If she teaches well, we'll consider extending your sanctuary. If not, he shrugged, we'll reconsider our position. He walked away, leaving Elias standing in the morning light, watching the riders disappear into the distance. Lydia emerged from the lodge. What happened? They came. Strong Bear sent them away. But they'll be back. How long do we have? A week, maybe 2. That's not enough time. Then we make it enough. She looked at him, fear and determination warring in her expression. How? I'm going back to the ranch. Going to find Thomas, get him to investigate. Someone took that money. We find out who, we've got our proof. You can't go back, they'll arrest you. Not if I'm careful. I know this country better than they do. I can slip in, talk to Thomas, slip out before they know I'm there. It's too dangerous. So is sitting here waiting for them to come back with an army. Elias, you stay here, teach the children, build goodwill. I'll handle the rest. I don't want you going alone. I'm not asking permission. Her jaw tightened. Fine, but you come back, you hear me? You come back or I'll hunt you down myself. Despite everything, he almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. He left that afternoon, taking only what he could carry. The crow gave him a fast horse and provisions for 3 days. Strong Bear walked him to the edge of the settlement. Your wife is brave, he said. She'll do well here. I know. Do you love her? The question caught Elias off guard. I don't know. Then you should figure it out before you lose the chance. What makes you think I'll lose the chance? Because men who ride into danger alone often don't come back. Strong Strong Bear gripped his shoulder. Be smart. Be careful. Come back to her. I will. He rode east, back toward the ranch, back toward danger and uncertainty, and the slim hope that somewhere in the mess there was proof that could save them. Behind him, in the Crow settlement, Lydia stood watching until he disappeared from sight. Then she turned and went to teach her first class. The ride back took 2 days. Elias avoided the main trails, staying to the high country where pursuit would be harder. He reached the ranch at night, approaching from the north ridge. The house was dark. Elias left his horse tied in the trees, moved down on foot. He was 50 yards from the barn when a rifle cocked behind him. Don't move, Thomas's voice. Elias let out a breath. It's me. Eli. Thomas lowered the rifle. What the hell are you doing here? Looking for you. We need to talk. They went to Thomas's cabin, safer than the main house. Inside, Thomas lit a lamp. He looked haggard, like he hadn't slept in days. The marshals came, Thomas said, tore the place apart looking for evidence, questioned me for hours. I told them you'd gone north, that I didn't know where. Don't think they believed me. They found us anyway. We're with the Crow now, under sanctuary. For how long? Not long enough. I need your help. We need to find out who really stole that money from the school. If we can prove Lydia's innocent, the charges drop. How am I supposed to do that from here? Send letters, ask questions. You know people back east, contacts from before you came out here. Use them. Find out who had access to the headmaster's office after Lydia was dismissed. Find out who might have had motive to frame her. Thomas ran his hand through his hair. That's a lot of maybes. It's all we've got. And if I can't find anything? Then we're out of options, but I have to try. She deserves that much. Thomas looked at him for a long moment. You love her. What? You love her. That's why you're doing this. Elias wanted to deny it. Wanted to say it was about justice, about doing the right thing, about anything except the raw truth that he'd been avoiding for weeks. But sitting in his brother's cabin, exhausted and desperate and out of options, the lie wouldn't come. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I do. When did you figure that out? Not sure. Somewhere between marrying her and watching her learn to ride, between teaching her to shoot and listening to her stories, between... He stopped. I don't know when, but somewhere along the way she stopped being a stranger and started being the person I can't imagine losing. Does she know? No. You should tell her. If I survive long enough. You'll survive. You're too stubborn to die. Elias almost smiled. That's what Lydia said. Smart woman. Smarter than me, that's for sure. They talked through the night, planning. Thomas would start writing letters immediately, calling in every favor he had. Elias would return to the Crow settlement, keep Lydia safe while they waited for answers. It was a fragile plan, built on hope and guesswork and the slim chance that somewhere, someone knew the truth. But it was all they had. At dawn, Elias prepared to leave. Thomas walked him to his horse. Be careful, Thomas said. Those marshals are still around. They're watching the ranch. I'll be careful. And Eli, when you see Lydia, tell her, don't wait. Life's too short and too hard to waste time on unsaid things. Elias nodded. I'll think about it. Don't think. Just do it. He rode out as the sun rose, heading back toward Crowland, toward Lydia, toward whatever came next. Behind him, Thomas stood watching until his brother disappeared over the ridge. Then he went inside and started writing letters. The race against time had begun. Elias made it back to the Crow settlement 3 days later, half-starved and running on nerves. He'd circled wide to avoid the marshal's patrols, sleeping in ravines and eating whatever he could scavenge. When he finally rode into camp, children scattered and warriors raised their weapons until they recognized him. Lydia was teaching when he arrived. He could hear her voice from outside the lodge, patient and clear, explaining something about vowels. He stood in the doorway, watching. 20 children sat in a rough circle, some young as 5, others nearly grown. They listened with varying degrees of attention while Lydia drew letters in the dirt with a stick. She looked up, saw him. Her face transformed, relief, joy, something deeper he couldn't quite name. Class dismissed, she said. We'll continue tomorrow. The children scattered. Lydia stood, crossed the space between them, and hit him hard in the chest. You said 3 days? It's been 5. I had to circle around. Marshals everywhere. I thought you were dead. I'm not. I can see that. She hit him again, lighter this time. Then she wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. Don't do that to me again. He held her back, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. I won't. I'm sorry. They stood like that for a long moment. Then she pulled back, wiped her eyes. Did you find Thomas? I did. He's working on it, sending letters, asking questions. It'll take time, but he thinks he can find something. How much time? Don't know. Weeks, maybe months. We don't have months. I know. She looked past him, out at the settlement. Strong Bear's been asking questions about how long we're staying, about whether the marshals will bring soldiers. The council's nervous. Can't blame them. This isn't their fight. No, it's not. But they're letting us stay anyway. The children, they're learning so fast. Some of them already knew their letters, just needed structure. Others are starting from nothing, but they're trying so hard. She smiled slightly. Teaching again, it feels right, like I'm doing something that matters. You are. But for how long? If the marshals come back with force, Strong Bear will turn us over. And then all of this, everything we've built here, it ends. Elias looked at her standing there, dirt on her dress from kneeling with the children, hair escaping its braid, exhaustion and determination written across her face. She'd been running her whole adult life, from her parents' death, from the assault, from false accusations. And now she'd found something worth staying for, and it was still being threatened. It wasn't fair, but fair didn't mean much out here. What mattered was what you could hold on to. Then we make sure it doesn't end, he said. We keep fighting until we win or until there's nothing left to fight for. And if we lose? We don't lose. How can you be so sure? Because I'm stubborn, remember? She almost laughed. Almost. That night, Strong Bear called them to council. The elders sat in a circle, faces grave. Elias and Lydia stood before them, waiting. The marshal sent a message, Strong Bear said. He's returning in 1 week with territorial authority and armed escort. He's demanding we surrender the fugitive or face consequences. What kind of consequences? Elias asked. He didn't specify. But the implication is clear. Soldiers, conflict, things we've worked hard to avoid. One of the elders spoke, an old woman with white braids. Why should we risk our people for strangers? Because it's the right thing to do, Lydia said. I know that doesn't mean much when you're facing armed men. But I'm innocent. Everything they're accusing me of is a lie. And if you turn me over, I'll die. Not in prison, on the way there. They'll make it look like an accident or an escape attempt, and no one will question it because I'm nobody. Just a poor woman who dared to accuse a rich man of assault. That's not our concern, another elder said. Isn't it? Lydia's voice strengthened. You know what it's like to be powerless against people with money and guns and the law on their side. You know what it's like to have everything taken from you because someone decided you didn't matter. That's what's happening to me. And if you hand me over, you're no different than the people who've been taking from you for decades. Silence fell. The elders looked at each other, something unspoken passing between them. Strong Bear spoke. You make a fair point, but fairness doesn't stop bullets. If we refuse and they come with force, people will die. Our people. Is your innocence worth that? No, Lydia said quietly. No, it's not. If it comes to violence, I'll surrender. I won't let people die for me. Lydia, Elias started. No. She cut him off. I mean it. If they come with soldiers, I'm done running. I'll go with them and take my chances with the courts. The courts won't help you. You said so yourself. Maybe not. But at least no one else will get hurt. Strong Bear studied her. You would do this? Surrender to men you know will kill you? If it means your people stay safe, yes. The old woman with white braids leaned forward. Why do you care what happens to us? We're strangers to you. You owe us nothing. You gave me sanctuary when no one else would. You trusted me with your children. You treated me with more respect and kindness than anyone has in 2 years. Lydia's voice cracked. I owe you everything. The least I can do is not get you killed. The council conferred in low voices. Elias watched, fists clenched, wanting to argue but knowing it wasn't his place. This was Lydia's choice. her life. All he could do was stand beside her and accept whatever came. Finally, Strong Bear raised his hand for silence. We've decided. You have 1 week. If, in that week, you can prove your innocence, we'll continue to shelter you. If not, you'll surrender to the marshal peacefully and we'll petition for fair treatment, but we won't fight, not for this. I understand, Lydia said. Thank you. Outside, Elias grabbed her arm. You can't seriously be planning to surrender. What choice do I have? We fight, we run, anything except just giving up. I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic. We don't have proof. Thomas is trying, but there's no guarantee he'll find anything. And even if he does, will it arrive in time? Will it be enough to overturn a federal warrant? She pulled free. I'm tired, Elias. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. If this ends with me in chains, at least it ends. You don't mean that. Don't I? What kind of life is this? Hiding, constantly looking over my shoulder, dragging good people into my mess? Maybe surrender is the kindest thing I can do. Kindest for who? Not for me. You think I want to watch you get taken by those men? You think I want to spend the rest of my life knowing I failed to protect you? You haven't failed, haven't I? I married you to keep you safe, promised to stand between you and anyone who wanted to hurt you, and now you're talking about surrendering like that promise meant nothing. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but I'm not letting you give up. Not now. Not when we're this close. Close to what? We have nothing. No evidence, no leverage, no time. We have each other. That's not nothing. She looked at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. Is it enough? It has to be. They stood in the cold night air, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them. Somewhere in the darkness, marshals planned their return. Somewhere further east, Thomas searched for proof that might never come. And here, in a Crow settlement that had shown them more mercy than their own people, they faced the reality that sometimes being right wasn't enough to win. But Elias had learned something in the months since Lydia arrived. He'd learned that giving up was easier than fighting, that grief was comfortable in its familiarity, that living required more courage than dying. He'd spent 3 years choosing the easy path, choosing isolation, choosing to stop caring because caring hurt too much. He wasn't making that choice again. 1 week, he said. We've got 1 week. Let's use it. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Elias worked with the horsemaster, helping train young colts while his mind churned through possibilities. Lydia taught with fierce intensity, pouring herself into the children as if teaching them might somehow balance the scales of justice. On the 3rd day, a rider arrived from the ranch. Young Charlie from town, barely 16, pushing his horse hard. He had a letter from Thomas. Elias tore it open, read quickly. His hand started shaking. What is it? Lydia asked. Thomas found something. The headmaster's assistant, a woman named Margaret Pierce. She left the school suddenly 2 weeks after the money disappeared. No forwarding address, no explanation, just vanished. That could be coincidence? Thomas tracked her down. She's in Philadelphia now, living well above her means. New clothes, new apartment, money she shouldn't have. So she stole the money. Looks like it. And Thomas found a witness. Another teacher who saw Margaret in the headmaster's office the night the money went missing. She was counting something, looked guilty when she was discovered. The teacher didn't think anything of it at the time, but now it's evidence. Hope flickered in Lydia's expression. Is it enough? I don't know, but it's something. Thomas is writing to the territorial marshal, laying out the case. He's also contacted a lawyer in Boston, someone who owes him a favor. If we can get Margaret to confess, she won't confess. Why would she? Because Thomas sent someone to talk to her, told her she could confess and face minimal charges, or wait for the law to catch up and face the full weight. Apparently she's scared. Might cooperate. Lydia pressed her hand to her mouth. When will we know? Thomas is sending word as soon as he hears. Could be days. Could be a week. The marshal comes back in 4 days. I know. She looked at him, fear and hope warring in her expression. What if the evidence doesn't arrive in time? Then we stall. Make them wait. By another day, another week, whatever it takes. Strong Bear won't. Let me worry about Strong Bear. You focus on the children. Keep doing what you're doing. Show them why you're worth protecting. She nodded, but he could see the doubt in her eyes. The bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting too long with too little hope. That night, unable to sleep, he found her sitting by the fire in their lodge. Can't sleep either? She asked. Too much in my head. Yeah. He sat beside her. The fire crackled. Outside, wind whispered through the settlement. I need to tell you something, he said. All right. When I married you, it was practical, protection, a legal shield. I wasn't thinking about anything except keeping you safe. I know. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being practical, stopped being about duty or obligation or my brother's mistake. He looked at her. Stopped being about anything except wanting you in my life. Not because you needed protection, because you make everything better. The ranch, the work, the long days, all of it's better with you there. Lydia's breath caught. Elias, I'm not good with words. Sarah used to say I had the emotional range of a fence post. But I need you to know. Before the marshal comes back, before whatever happens next, I need you to know that I love you. Not the idea of you, not the obligation. You. The woman who learned to ride in 3 weeks, who teaches children like their futures depend on it, who faced down men with guns and never flinched. I love you and I'm not letting you go. Not to marshals, not to false accusations, not to anything. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. I have for weeks. I didn't think I was allowed to. This marriage was supposed to be temporary, practical. I thought loving you would make it hurt more when it ended. It's not ending. You can't know that. I can know I'm going to fight like hell to make sure it doesn't. She leaned into him. He wrapped his arms around her, held her close. They sat like that for hours, taking comfort in the warmth of another person who understood what it meant to lose everything and still choose to keep living. The next morning, Strong Bear found them working with the horses. His expression was grim. The marshal sent another message. He's coming tomorrow, not in 4 days. Tomorrow, with 20 men and territorial authority. Elias's stomach dropped. We need more time. I've bought you all the time I can. Tomorrow he gets his answer. Either you have proof of innocence or you surrender. And if the proof is on its way but not here yet, then it's not here. I'm sorry, but I can't risk my people on maybes. Strong Bear walked away. Lydia turned to Elias, face pale. It's over, she said. It's not over till it's over. The proof won't arrive by tomorrow. We both know that. Then we find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. We just have to... A shout interrupted him. One of the scouts was riding in hard, waving something. He jumped off his horse, ran to Strong Bear, thrust a bundle of papers at him. Strong Bear read quickly, then looked up. His eyes found Elias and Lydia. It's from your brother, he called. You should read this. They ran over. Strong Bear handed Elias the papers. He read aloud, hands shaking. Margaret Pierce confessed, admitted to stealing $300 from the school's operating fund. Signed statement attached. Also attached, witness testimony from 2 teachers who saw her in the office that night, character references for Lydia from former colleagues, and a letter from the headmaster's own secretary stating that Lydia was dismissed before the theft occurred and couldn't possibly be guilty. The territorial marshal in Capital City has reviewed the evidence and ordered the warrant withdrawn. Lydia Hart Mercer is cleared of all charges. Chimmuts, silence. Then Lydia made a sound, half laugh, half sob. She grabbed the papers from Elias, read them herself, like she couldn't believe it was real. I'm cleared, she whispered. It's over. I'm actually cleared. You're cleared, Elias repeated. He felt lightheaded, dizzy with relief. You're free. She threw her arms around him. He lifted her off her feet, spun her once. Around them, crow people gathered, sensing something had changed. Strong Bear raised his hand for attention. The charges are dropped, he announced. The woman is innocent. When the marshal arrives tomorrow, we'll show him the proof and send him away. Cheers went up. Children who'd grown attached to their teacher rushed forward, grabbing Lydia's hands, asking questions in broken English and Crow. She laughed through tears, trying to answer them all at once. Elias stood back, watching. This woman who'd arrived at his ranch more dead than alive, who'd fought her way through winter and false accusations and men with guns, was finally free, finally safe. And she was his. The marshal arrived the next morning with his 20 men, confident and ready for confrontation. Strong Bear met him at the settlement edge with Elias, Lydia, and a dozen warriors. "I'm here for the fugitive," Marshal Dawson said. "There is no fugitive," Strong Bear replied. "The charges have been dropped. The real thief confessed. Here's the documentation." He handed over the papers. The marshal read them, face darkening. He looked at the well-dressed man who'd accompanied him. "This changes things," the marshal said. "No, it doesn't," the well-dressed man snapped. "The Waverleys want her punished, confession or not. The Waverleys don't have jurisdiction here. The territorial marshal does, and he's cleared her. My warrant is void." "You're just going to let her walk?" "I'm going to follow the law, something you should have been doing from the start." The marshal looked at Lydia. "Ma'am, you're free to go. I apologize for the trouble." The well-dressed man's face went red. "This isn't over. The Waverleys will do nothing," the marshal interrupted. "Because if they pursue this further, I'll investigate how they managed to get a false warrant issued in the first place. And something tells me that investigation might turn up some uncomfortable facts." He looked at the well-dressed man hard. "Tell your employers to let it go. This woman suffered enough." He turned his horse, gestured to his men. They rode out, leaving the well-dressed man sitting alone, furious but powerless. "You haven't won," he called to Lydia. "The Waverleys don't forget." "Neither do I," Lydia called back. "Tell Charles I said hello, and that I hope he sleeps well at night, knowing what he did." The man spurred his horse and rode off. Silence fell. Then Strong Bear laughed, a deep, booming sound. "That man will be angry for weeks. I almost feel sorry for him." "Don't," Elias said. "He earned it." Strong Bear clapped him on the shoulder. "Your wife is welcome to stay and teach if she wishes. The children have grown fond of her." Lydia looked at Elias. "What do you think?" "I think we should go home, back to the ranch, start the life we were supposed to have before all this started." "And the children?" "Can visit. We'll set up a school closer to town, somewhere all the children can come. Crow Settler, whoever wants to learn, you can teach there." Strong Bear nodded approvingly. "A good plan. We'll help build it." They stayed 3 more days saying goodbyes and making plans. The children cried when Lydia left, but she promised to return. Promised the school would be ready by fall. Then they rode back to the ranch, taking their time, no longer running from anything. Thomas was waiting when they arrived. He'd kept the place running, everything neat and functional. When he saw them coming up the road, he ran out to meet them. "You're back. You're safe." "I was starting to worry." "We're fine," Elias said, dismounting. "Better than fine. We're free." Thomas looked between them. "So the evidence worked?" "It worked. Thank you for everything. I didn't do much, just asked the right questions." "You did more than that. You saved her life." Thomas flushed. "I was just fixing my mistake, making up for what I started." "You did more than make up for it," Lydia said. She hugged him tight. "You gave me my life back. I won't forget that." They went inside. The house felt different somehow, warmer, more alive. Elias stood in the main room, looking around at the space he'd rattled around in for 3 years, hating every corner for what it reminded him of. Now it just looked like home. That night, after Thomas had gone to his cabin and the house was quiet, Elias and Lydia stood in what had been their separate bedroom. The 2 beds still pushed to opposite walls. "We should probably do something about that," Lydia said. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know, maybe push them together? Or get rid of one? Or that?" They looked at each other. Then Elias crossed the space between them, cupped her face in his hands, and kissed her. She kissed him back, soft and tentative at first, then deeper. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he said. "What took you so long?" "Wasn't sure I was allowed." "You're my husband. You're allowed." "Good to know." He kissed her again. This time there was no hesitation, no holding back, just 2 people who'd fought their way through hell to get to this moment, finally letting themselves feel everything they'd been too scared to acknowledge. Later, lying in the single bed they'd decided to keep, Lydia traced patterns on his chest. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I'm glad my brother's an interfering fool." She laughed. "Really? Really? If he hadn't sent for you, I'd still be up here alone, shooting at the sky, waiting to die. Instead, I've got... He paused. What did he have? Everything. I've got everything. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. Can you handle it? I think so, but you'll have to be patient. I'm still figuring out how to be a wife. I'm still figuring out how to be a husband again. We'll learn together. Deal. She settled against him, fitting perfectly in the curve of his shoulder. Outside, the valley was quiet under stars. Inside, two people who'd been broken in different ways were slowly becoming whole. Spring turned to summer. They built the school with help from the Crow and the town, a sturdy building halfway between the settlement and Silverton. Lydia taught there 3 days a week, riding back and forth on Mercy. The children thrived under her instruction, Crow and settler children learning side by side, something that had never happened before. Thomas met a woman in town, a widow with 2 young children, started courting her properly, no schemes or tricks. By fall, he was married too, bringing his new family to live in his cabin. The ranch felt alive again, full of voices and laughter and the chaos of children learning to ride. Elias worked the land with renewed purpose, not to fill empty hours or escape grief, but because the work meant something. He was building a future now, not just maintaining a past. And when winter came again, harsh and unforgiving as always, he and Lydia faced it together. On the coldest nights, they'd sit by the fire, talking about the day, making plans for spring. Sometimes she'd ask about Sarah and Daniel, and he'd tell stories. It didn't hurt as much anymore. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it had become part of the landscape rather than the whole view. One night, 2 years after Lydia first arrived, she told him she was pregnant. He felt terror first. The same terror he'd felt when Sarah was pregnant with Daniel, the fear of loving something that could be taken away. But then Lydia took his hand, placed it on her stomach, and looked at him with such trust and hope that the fear couldn't quite hold. "It'll be all right," she said. "We'll be all right." How do you know? Because we've survived worse. We've survived people trying to destroy us, false accusations, winter in the mountains, everything. We can survive this too. This is different. This is life. It's just life. And life is scary and uncertain and sometimes terrible, but it's also beautiful and worth fighting for. You taught me that. I did? You did. When you refused to give up on me. When you married me to keep me safe. When you rode into danger to find proof I was innocent. You showed me that some things are worth the risk. The baby came in early summer, a girl with Lydia's eyes and Elias's stubborn jaw. They named her Sarah, after the woman who'd taught Elias how to love. It felt right, honoring the past while embracing the future. Thomas's wife had a son that same summer. The 2 babies grew up together, more like siblings than cousins. The ranch prospered, the school expanded. The community that had been suspicious of Lydia at first grew to respect and admire her. And slowly, year by year, the story of the unwanted bride who'd saved a broken man became legend. People told it around fires, at gatherings, to their children. They changed details, embellished parts, made it more dramatic than it had been. But the core truth remained. 2 people who'd lost everything found each other in the worst possible circumstances. They fought for each other when no one else would. They built a life from nothing but determination and faith in each other. They proved that broken things could be mended, that second chances existed, that love wasn't something you fell into by accident, but something you chose every day, even when it was hard. Years later, when Elias was old and Sarah was grown with children of her own, someone asked him if he'd do it all again. The pain, the fear, the running, the fighting. He didn't hesitate. Every bit of it, he said, because it led me to her. And she was worth everything. Lydia, sitting beside him on the porch of the house they'd built together, squeezed his hand. "You were worth it too," she said. "Every bit." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their grandchildren play in the yard, watching the sun set over the valley that had witnessed their struggle and their triumph. They'd started as strangers, became allies, then friends, then lovers, then partners in the truest sense, and in the end they'd proven something important. That the best things in life aren't the ones that come easy. They're the ones you fight for, the ones you choose, the ones you build from nothing but will and hope and the refusal to give up. Elias had fired his gun at the sky once, screaming at a world that had taken everything from him. Now he sat with everything he needed, everything that mattered, and understood what he hadn't known back then. That sometimes the things we lose make room for the things we need. That grief and joy can exist together. That healing doesn't mean forgetting, but learning to carry your pain in ways that don't break you. And that love, real love, isn't about perfection or ease or fairy tale endings. It's about choosing to stand beside someone when everything falls apart. It's about fighting for them when they can't fight for themselves. It's about building something beautiful from the wreckage of what came before. As the sun dipped below the mountains and the first stars appeared, Elias looked at Lydia and saw not the desperate woman who'd arrived half-frozen and terrified, but the strong, capable, remarkable person she'd become. And he understood finally what it meant to be truly alive. Not just surviving, living, building, loving. It had taken him 3 years of darkness to find the light. But it had been worth every moment of the wait.